without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mark King.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. This is a big night for me, and the only reason I'm here tonight is because I just fell in love with Michael and Jason and the team, because I go to bed every night about 6:30. So my wife actually said, "How are you going to do this?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to try really hard." So here I am, past my bedtime, going to speak to you. In 1981, I graduated from college. I moved from Green Bay, Wisconsin to Carlsbad, California. Anyway, it's really great to be here. I live about 5 minutes from here, so it was really easy for me to get here. And I'm really excited. The last time I spoke in front of a live audience, it was with Michael and Jason and team. So this is pretty exciting for me. I just love speaking. I don't know why, but I just love it. I love sharing my story and my journey, and hopefully it can be somewhat provocative to you, to give you something to think about, maybe a different lens by which you can look at your job. I don't do your job. I know some of the companies that you represent, but I think there's a lot of themes that run across any business, whether you're in retail or in our business, making food and marketing, whatever it is, there's so many common themes, and I really just, I love talking about that. I do want to recognize one of our vendors tonight, Mr. AIG over here, James Bell. It does some signage for us, a lot of signage for us, and they won a Star Award. So let's hear it for our vendor, AGI. Thank you. Thank you very much. I've had the most amazing, I'm 62 years old, and I've had the most amazing life, really fortunate. One, because I've lived in Carlsbad for 40 years, but I've worked for 3 just really cool brands. One is the TaylorMade Golf Company. Any golfers here tonight? Very nice. Do you know that TaylorMade is literally 5 minutes from here? And I worked there for 34 years. And we probably had 25 conferences here at La Costa. So if you need to know anything about La Costa, let me know. I can show you around the property. Then I worked for the Adidas Company. Any Adidas fans here tonight? I know probably more Nike, but some older people probably like Adidas. We like that. And now I'm fortunate enough to work for Taco Bell. So I'm going to kind of mix my story tonight, and it's all really around how do we live and how do we operate and how can we be the most successful in this really uncertain world that we live in. If you go back right after the Industrial Revolution, for the next 100 years or so, the world really tried to get control of itself, be predictable, and bring some organization as the world grew and expanded. And especially as businesses expanded, it was really important to insert control and predictability. And that served us well for many, many years. And whether it was the church, government, teams, family, businesses, it was really about control and predictability. And if you think about how leaders led, command and control leadership model was probably the way most of us led for a long, long time. And employees, great employees, were smart, diligent, and loyal, and they really supported and waited for directions, and they went and executed that. And decision-making was really based on knowledge, wisdom, and experience. That's the way the world operated. And people that ran companies, ran industries, they were around the longest, and they had the most knowledge, the most wisdom, and the most experience. About 10 years ago, I think the world started to really change. And it's really changing for a couple of reasons. One, technology, it changes all of our world. Also, the younger generation is asking for a seat at the table. They want to be heard. Millennials really changed the way the workplace operated. So between a different type of makeup in the workforce, technology, and organizations looking for new and better ideas to run their businesses, things really started to change. 18 months ago, all of that change accelerated even more when COVID hit. And I think, as Michael said, all of us are dealing with how do we work in this world that's accelerated maybe by 10 years in the last 18 months. And it's pretty radical, really, really radical. So I want to share with you some things that I think can help all of us work in this world that's really, really different. So I'll start with, I got my job as the CEO of the TaylorMade Golf Company in 2000. And the business was not very healthy. And we were owned by Adidas at the time. We had no momentum. We had no real market share to speak of. We were about $300 million business. And we challenged ourselves to say, how could we compete against 2 or 3 of these big competitors when we have no momentum? And so we went out and we talked to customers. And we found out that customers, golfers, really their needs were not being satisfied by the manufacturers, by the OEMs. And they weren't because golfers were really interested in new technology and new products. And the manufacturers were bringing these products out every 3 to 5 years. And they told us, golfers told us, that they really wanted new products every year. The really passionate golfers wanted something new every year. So in 2000, based on data, not on knowledge, wisdom, and experience, but based on real data, we decided to change our R&D department. We decided to change our supplier base and start to introduce products every 12 months. We would obsolete the current products every 12 months. Most technology industries do that, but golf did not do that. So it's not really like it was that big a deal to the rest of the world, but to our little world of golf clubs, it was really groundbreaking. And we started in 2000, we were about $300 million. By 2002, we were launching new products every 12 months. And when we launched a product, we would lower the price of the past year's product to a lower price. And we kept this cycle going. Within 3 or 4 years, about 2004 or 5, we had doubled the size of the business to $600 million. And by 2008, we were $1 billion. Went from $300 million to $1 billion in about 8 years. And what happened is, and I think it can happen to any business, is that industries all operate, especially mature industries, they operate based on the way it's always been. And executives and leaders and people in your position, they operate the way we've always operated. And then somebody comes along and says, you know, we can do it differently. And when you find ways to do it differently that actually match what your customer wants, industries get disrupted. And it happens every day, and we don't need to go through all the examples, but Tesla and Southwest and Uber, and they disrupt industries because we all just get used to doing it, and we all know how to do it, and we're all uncomfortable disrupting ourselves. But the one thing that I took away, many things we did right at TaylorMade, many things we did wrong, but the one thing that I really learned, and I think it goes across any business, is that the model in your industry is going to be disrupted. It's going to be. The question is, who's going to disrupt it? And my point is, we all should be trying to disrupt our own model. We should be running our model the way it currently is and perfecting it and getting better every year. Certainly, we should be constantly improving, but at the same time, we should be looking at listening to our customers and what is it that we're not doing that we could do. So that's, for me, the biggest thing I learned from TaylorMade that runs across. And when you think about uncertain world, all it means is it's going to change quickly, and it's going to change rapidly. And my point is, you should be the ones driving that change. So I worked there, TaylorMade, for 14 years. And then one day, I was sitting here in Carlsbad, I got a call from my boss. He's a German dude from Germany. Adidas is a German company. Any Germans here? I'm German, so I can say that. Or my mother was German. She said she was German. I don't really know if she was or not. Anyway, I worked for this guy for 14 years. He was the chairman of the Adidas company. He said, hey, you've had a really nice run at TaylorMade. we'd like you to go and run the Adidas business in North America. Now, the Adidas business in North America up until 2014 had 20 years of no growth. And in those 20 years, they had 10 presidents. So they would bring a guy in, he had a really nice resume, he was really smart, and 2 years later they fired him because he became really stupid over that 2-year period. So when I told my wife that I was leaving a job that I loved and I had to move to Portland to take a job that I probably would get fired in 2 years, she wasn't that excited. She's no longer my wife. She left me. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so I really didn't want to take the job, and I took the job. So I go up to Portland, Oregon, and if you go back to 2014, Nike was rocking. They still are rocking. Under Armour was doing great, and the Adidas brand, great everywhere in the world except here in the United States. So I really didn't know what to do because I didn't know much about footwear and apparel. I was a golf club guy. I was a golf industry guy. It was new for me. But we did two things. The first thing was at the very first all-employee meeting, I got up in front of everyone and I said, it was about 1,500 people, we haven't had a lot of success for the past 20 years, but we have a lot of great people, and we live in the largest sports market in the world. We have 53% of the sports market here in North America. And there's no reason we shouldn't do fantastic, because the one thing I know about American consumers, they love to buy things. And if we give them the right products and we make our brand cool, they will buy our products. The Adidas business had been flat, about $1.5 billion, for almost 20 years in 2014. So I said, we're going to have a big aspiration. We're going to become the face of sport in the United States. Now think about face of sport in the United States. You have the Yankees. I'm from Green Bay. You have the Green Bay Packers. You have ESPN. You have the Yankees. You have all these sports institutions that represent sport. I said, I think we can become the face of sport. Adidas is the face of sport around the world. Why can't we be the face of sport here in the United States? Well, nobody believed we could. Everybody kind of was sarcastic, laughed a little bit. But I said, I think we can do it. And somebody said, well, Mark, how are we going to do that? And I said, I have no idea. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to challenge all of you to figure it out. So I brought in an outside consultant. His name is Gary Hamill. He's a big guy on innovation and creativity inside of companies. And we built a training module to upskill employees to learn how to be creative and use their creative skills. And at the beginning of it, we said, you take an idea that you think could make Adidas a better company, and Gary Hamill in this training module, eight-session module, will build out a business plan over an 8-week period. So we launched this in early 2015, about February of 2015. And we had about 2,000 employees around North America volunteer to go through the 8-week program. They all started with their own idea of how Adidas could be a better company. And at the end of 8 weeks, we had 1,000 business plans on how we could be a better company. 1,000. Now, they weren't all breakthrough ideas. One was, let's have free beer on Thursdays. We actually did implement that starting at 3 o'clock, and it was a home run. It didn't really change our business. But we had all kinds of ideas, from product to marketing to culture to supply chain, all of the different elements of business people addressed. And we had all these ideas. Got really, really excited about being asked to think, to challenge, and to help create the future. The morale of the company changed almost overnight. In a 3 or 4 month period, the morale, which had really been kind of beaten down, not a lot of energy, not a lot of hope, became pretty energized. We had a big Shark Tank, and we had all of the finalists present, and we had this big show, and it was really awesome. We picked 10 ideas. We launched these 10 ideas, and we started to gain some momentum. One of those ideas was to bring in a celebrity who wasn't a sports person. Kanye West was this person, who didn't know anything about sports. He had a little stint at Nike, unsuccessful, and to give him the opportunity to create his own brand. Does anyone know the Yeezy brand? Okay. Well, in 2015, by the end of 2015, we launched the Yeezy brand because of the Innovation Academy. That's what we called it. That business in 2015 was zero, and by 2020, that business was $1 billion. $1 billion. The entire Adidas business in 2015 was $1.5 billion. And in 4 or 5 years, one idea turned into a $1 billion franchise for the Adidas brand. But here's, to me, the second big idea for all of you is this. At TaylorMade, what I learned is I think you have to be in pursuit of finding something new and different. At Adidas, I figured out that when you engage people that work for your company to help find those solutions, all kinds of great things change. I mean, just amazing things change. When I stepped down at the end of 2018, the Adidas business was $5.2 billion, 1.5 to 5.2 billion in 4.5 years. Amazing. And I had no idea how to do it. All I knew how to do was ask people to help and set a big ambition. So I stepped down at the end of 2018, having learned a bunch of things that run across any business. One, you need a big aspiration. You need something out there that you're kind of looking up to and you're excited about, and it gives employees hope. The second thing is you have to be in pursuit of doing things differently. And so how do you find those different things? You ask as many people to join in the parade, if you will, or the party, and think and challenge the status quo, challenge industry orthodoxies, challenge the way your organization has always operated, and find new and cool ways to do things. So I was done. I was going to live here in Carlsbad. I was going to play golf and enjoy the beautiful weather. That moon is out there. And then I get a call from Taco Bell. Hey, do you want to come run Taco Bell? Hey, no. Why not? I don't know anything about food. I don't know anything about restaurants. I don't know anything about franchisees. And I really like playing golf. But we think you should. Okay, I will. So I took the job. It was a little more complicated than that, but that was kind of what happened. I'll tell you really what happened is I talked to my daughter. I have a 26-year-old marketing person. She works for Blenders, the eyewear company here in Pacific Beach. She said, Dad, as cool as Adidas is, Taco Bell is cooler. Really? I didn't know that, but I went on their social media. I went on, oh my gosh, Taco Bell is a very cool brand. I don't know if you like the food, but the brand is really cool. Food's pretty good too. So I take the job in August of 2019. Business is rocking. It was really great for me because when I took the TaylorMade job, the business was really broken. The Adidas job, the business was really broken. But Taco Bell was rocking. And I remember I met one of my favorite franchisees, and I'll tell you because he's building this really cool store up in Minneapolis. And he said, hey, let me give you a little coaching. Don't F it up. Don't F it up. So for the first few months, I just kind of tiptoed around, not wanting to do anything because things were so good. And it was really cool. I was having fun. And then I spoke for Michael in whatever it was, Michael, February or March, early March of 2020. And the following week, COVID shuts down the world. And my guess is everyone in here, the middle of March of 2020, really was wondering, especially if you have retail, nobody's circulating in society, nobody's going out, are we going to survive? And I want to tell you what we did during the past 18 months to survive, and I think it's really interesting. I think there's a few different phases. The first one was, can we survive? And so what we did is we over-communicated starting the very first day. And when I mean over-communicate, we had an all-employee call on it every Friday to update all of our employees. And I'm talking not the people, the frontline workers that work in the restaurants, but that work at the headquarters up in Irvine. So we had a call every Friday to say, we're doing okay, we have a plan, we're calm, and we're all together. We talked to the franchisees. They have a group that represents the system. We talk to them every single day, and most days we talk to them twice. And so we over-communicated, and then we found out something that Michael made reference to, but we didn't actually have to get together every day because we have this thing called Teams or Zoom. And that tool existed before, but nobody ever used it or not used it a lot, and all of a sudden we were using it all the time. So in the early days for us, it was survive. What do we have to do for safety for all employees, safety for team members, safety for customers? Safety really became the number one thing that we focused on. About 60 days into it, we were actually seeing we were going to be okay, we being Taco Bell. And the main reason is because 75% of the Taco Bell's business is drive-through. So even though dine-in closed down, we could tell everyone that we were open and that we were safe and that we had all these safety protocols. And so people really started to come back as they, 60, 90 days into 2020, into COVID, people started to go out and go through drive-through. The problem for us was drive-through, we lost 25%. So the first thing we had to do was say, how are we going to make up that 25%? Well, we really weren't in the digital business. We didn't have any loyalty program. We didn't have any delivery. We didn't have any aggregators that represented us. We didn't have any of that in May of 2020. By the time we got to the end of the summer, we had a bunch of aggregators, Uber Eats, DoorDash, we had signed them all up. We had changed our menu to have group occasions so we could ship, or so we could sell people lunch and dinners. This is things that we didn't have. We didn't have a loyalty program. Today we have almost 15 million people on our loyalty program. So what we figured out is that if we didn't change, and change like really overnight, we were going to lose 25% of our business. And so for me, one of the things that and I'm sure you learned the same thing, when faced with a crisis, you can do things you never thought possible. My challenge to all of us is, why do we always wait for a crisis to do things that are different and better and more effective? And so for me, the one thing I think about this acceleration of change is that we should be accelerating change ourselves, not just waiting for it because there's a crisis or because we need to. Because what we showed ourselves was that we could do things in a very short period of time that prior to COVID, it would have taken us a year or two, and we did it in a few months. And I think that's a big learning for all of us, is that we get so stuck on bureaucracy and how are we going to make decisions and bringing everybody along, and yet in a crisis you have the right people in the right moment with the right question, you make a decision and you move forward. If it's wrong, you change it, you fix it. But I think that's a better operating model for all of us. So we did that pretty quickly, and by the time we got to the fall, our business was actually a little bit ahead of the year before. In just 4 or 5 months of changing and pivoting the basic operation. And then we said, what are we going to do coming out of COVID? Now, I'm not sure we're out of COVID yet, but then we said, what are we going to do? And this is where I think it really is more similar to what you guys do every day. We have 7,500 restaurants in the United States. They all have dining rooms, and nobody's going in the dining room today. So what are we going to do with those dining rooms? And yes, some of those dining rooms have been open, but very few people go back in. We had about 25% of our business prior to COVID was in the dining room. It's now less than 5%. It's 3 or 4%. So we have 7,500 structures with nobody going in them. So what are we going to do? And I'm sure you faced a lot of those problems early on, not so much anymore. But here's what we talked about. And this is not like brain surgery, or you didn't have to be a scientist to figure this out. But we said, what do people like to do? Well, they like to socialize. And so why don't we turn the dining rooms into social places? So one of the things that we're launching coming up here in a few months is a bunch of brunches on different days of the week, inviting people in for special menu brunches and to be able to socialize and come together as a community. That's one thing. We've offered frontline workers the opportunity to come in and socialize, free Wi-Fi, and work from our restaurant. We're also now considering offering alcohol in almost all Taco Bells. Now, please don't leave here and say Taco Bell's offering alcohol in all restaurants, but we're thinking about that because what we have to figure out is how do we get people to come back into the restaurant? And if they're not going to come back in to dine, we've got to give them a reason. So we're talking about gaming, we're talking about alcohol, we're talking about social clubs, we're talking about different uses of the asset. And these are things that we never would have thought about before, and I actually think they're going to be really breakthrough ideas. Second thing we're thinking about is change. Does everyone know we have a format called Cantina? So we have some really cool ones in Las Vegas. You can actually get married at that cantina on the Strip. Now that's really unique, but a cantina is a bigger restaurant. It's a dine-in. It has alcohol, and they're kind of themed. There's one at Wrigley, right outside of Wrigley Field. There's a couple up in San Francisco area. We have about 50 of them. So what we're thinking is, as the assets are getting older, and next year Taco Bell celebrates its 60th year, we have a lot of assets that have been around a long time. And really, a lot of the franchisees, they have a minimum remodel that doesn't really redo the whole thing. So we have a lot of assets that look old. And we have so many franchisees that are so excited about remodeling the existing asset into a cantina offering alcohol. Great idea. Again, why is it that we had to wait till a crisis to figure out that there's a better use for our asset than we had before? Because the economics, the unit economics in a cantina, in some cases are double what a normal Taco Bell is. Double. And we could have done this years ago. So it'll take time. We're just rolling it out. But I think that my message here is you have things. Are you really using them to the best utilization, or however you want to say that? And maybe you are. But what we're finding is the more we challenge the way we're organized, the more we challenge how we think about our business and our assets, the more things happen that are really quite phenomenal. The third thing then is we're thinking, hey, why are we building new? So we build about 300 new restaurants a year in the United States. So now the new format is really no dine-in restaurant. So it's only a drive-through. So the economics of this are really amazing because you save about, 30% on the build-out cost of the initial restaurant. We're putting in 2 lanes, which AGI helped us with Go Mobile. So we're changing the formats completely around digital, around loyalty, around 2 drive-through lanes, and no dine-in or a very small dine-in. Completely radical. We never would have done that if it weren't for COVID. And again, I go back to why do we, and I'm just using we generically, but I think the world is uncertain only for one reason, because it's changing rapidly. And the winners figure out how to change first. The winners are the ones that disrupt the industry, the way Uber did, the way Southwest Airlines, the way Tesla, on and on and on. So I think all of us should be thinking about how do we change, how do we run our current business, but how do we change and adapt? And I think it comes down to a few basic principles. And these are things that I think today's leaders really need to possess. And the first is, you really, really do have to have an open mind and the open mind is around this. The way the world looks today, it's not going to look that way in a very short period of time. It's going to change. And so we have to be open to not hanging on to the past, but hanging on to what the future looks like. Well, how do we know what the future looks like? Well, a few people don't. But when you engage more people in thinking about how it's going to look, their connectivity through all of the different mediums that are available to people that aren't just in this room, there's a lot more ideas out there. There's a lot more creativity. There's a lot more understanding of the way the world is moving than only the people in this room can understand. So I think it's using all of your resources to find new creative ideas. And then the third thing is you have to have the courage to adapt and adapt with speed. Because I think the one thing that wins today, almost more than anything, is to get there first. There's this phrase, fast follower. I don't think fast follower is a good it's a good strategy anymore. I think the world's moving so fast, it will reward leaders that get out front, have the courage to change, and do the right things. So that's all I have to say tonight. But I want to open it up and ask a few questions. You can ask anything about Taco Bell, how we survived through COVID. I tried to just get a few things in. My general message is this: COVID for us was really hard at the beginning because we looked at our business and really didn't know what to do. And the more we stood back and the more we said, what could we do, and challenge things, and I'm sure you guys did the same thing, but all kinds of doors open for us, and we're more excited right now about the future than we were 18 months ago when I just started the job. So thank you very much for having me tonight. Let's have a few questions. And you can clap if you'd like.
You can clap. Any questions? I've got one to kick it off. I guess, a big thing that everyone's thinking about is return to work, hybrid work, the future of work. So as CEO, what is the policy that you're going to have in place for your staff, and what do you think just overall about bringing teams together and collaborating? Because we've all got used to these Microsoft Teams and Zoom and other things. How do you see the future of work?
It's a great question, Michael. Here's what we did. When you look at our executive team, the youngest person's probably 45 years old. I'm 62, and yet our company is defined by employees that are 22 to 40 years old. And so we said, let's not have the executive team decide what the future of work looks like at Taco Bell. Let's let the employees figure it out. So we got a small group together, maybe 10 people. Yum did the same thing, by the way. There was a cross-brand group that looked at and had young people say, what does the future of work look like? What's important to young people? And so we ended up with this hybrid. I guess most people are going to do that. But we're giving everyone the option. They can work from home. They can work from the office. They can relocate anywhere in the United States. They can't leave the U.S. and work for the U.S. company, but they can relocate. So we have given the employee all of the power, all of the flexibility to create their own work environment. Michael and I were talking about it before. It's very challenging. It's a little clumsy. I have a belief that it'll end up where it should be in the right mix. But I think the key for me is let the people decide what it should look like, and we have to adapt as managers and leaders.
Is there going to be any more interruption in the Taco Bell fire sauce packets? It's just selfish.
No. There's not. Amazing, these sauce packets. You know what I mean? It's like the whole thing is in the sauce.
But aren't you asking people to send the packets back?
So we're working with a company called TerraCycle on sustainability, and we're trying to figure out. The math on the waste is amazing, and so we're going to have a program where people can turn, and there'll be a whole logistics to it. You can turn in your sauce packets, used ones, obviously. They get clean, and they tear them down, and we're actually going to build backpacks for kids and donate those to kids. So it'll be taking waste, reusing it, and giving underprivileged kids some swag and Taco Bell, but mainly it's going to be backpacks for school.
Can you share a little more information about your new store in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota? Was this a direct result of COVID, and what's the forecast for that?
Yeah, so the guy that said don't F it up, Jeff and Lee Engler are from Minneapolis. Border Foods are amazing. They have about 250 restaurants, very entrepreneurial. In my opinion, they're the best franchisee that we have. Just everything they do, they take care of their people, they pay. Just amazing brothers. The Englers is there, Jeff and Lee. And this is not because of COVID. They had this vision for a futuristic Taco Bell. It's called Defy. It actually has a name. It'll be opening in March or April. It's all digital. It's all order ahead. There's 4 drive-through lanes. But the really cool thing is that the kitchens, there's 4 kitchens, and they're up on top of the drive-through lane. So you order ahead, and when you pull in, the food comes down like a bank in a vacuum sealed tube, and there's no interaction with anyone. It's all online. You get there, the food comes down, you open your thing, you take it, and you drive out. It's like, now, the economics, because of the throughput, especially during the rush hours of lunch and dinner, are amazing. So we'll see what happens, but it's really going to be spectacular, and it could be the format of the future, because it probably, at a minimum, increases the revenue by about 50%. That's all hypothetical, but it's pretty exciting.
So can I ask a question on that? I'm over here, Mark.
Yeah.
The operations of it, right? So you got the design, everything, but have you tested out, like, if someone comes into the drive-thru and they're like, oh, I want some more hot sauce, they've got to get it now sent down, like?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
But the key to this is all technology, because you have to be able to order on your phone, or there'll be a touch screen that you can do. So I think it will work, but there's a lot of work to be done yet.
What keeps you up at night?
Well, usually nothing.
Something's got come on.
But no, only because I'm not very good at too many things, but I am like an Olympic champion sleeper, just for the record. But I'll tell you what keeps me up in this job is, if you have a bad product, if you work for a golf company or a shoe company, it's really no big deal. If you have a bad food product, it's really devastating. So I think food quality would be the biggest concern. And then, something that we have more control of, I would say, is I think the workforce is changing right now, and can we find workers, and can we change the economics of our P&Ls to be able to pay people to come and work? I think it's probably the biggest challenge we all have, is doing the right thing by people, paying them the right, but it's going to have an impact on our P&Ls, and are we willing to do that?
Yeah. We have a question for you over here.
Yep.
So you said that COVID kind of brought out all of this creativity within the organization. So what's the strategy for keeping that going? What's the strategy for continuing?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. We launched something, and you can read about it. I have a podcast called Restless Creativity, and the idea is that we've asked everyone, and so the platform is Restless Creativity, which basically means we're always in pursuit of something new and different. And we've had 3 programs this year so far where we've given 60 people that volunteer a business challenge. One of those, and I already talked about it, was how do we come back to work? And we let those people create the environment to come back to work. We've looked at how do we create new value on the menu. We gave that to a group of people. So we will continually, once a quarter, we come up with a new business challenge. 60 people volunteer. We have a facilitator that brings them through the brief, and they come up with all these cool creative ideas. So that's how, and it's gaining momentum, and it's very similar to the Innovation Academy that we had at Adidas, but it's really energizing for the people to think that they can have a say in creating the future.
I also read recently that you guys just brought on an agency to deal with culture. I know you hit on that, but just going back to the labor force thing. So
Yeah.
can you maybe share with the audience kind of the vision
Yeah.
behind that?
Yeah, it's a big issue. I would say when George Floyd died, the world changed. At least maybe the world didn't change, but the conversation in the world and society changed. And we have 3 groups of people at Taco Bell. We have our own employees. We have franchisees that own the businesses for the most part, and we have our customers. And we really struggled to how do we speak to these different groups of people? And we felt inadequate to be able to lean in on any topic, because if you lean in this way, you frustrate one group. If you lean in over here, you frustrate another, and yet we're all Taco Bell. So I met a mutual friend, or a friend of mine introduced me to a man named Ted Chung, who has the Cashmere Agency, and their real specialty is connecting brands to multicultural audiences. And how do you speak to different groups of people? And it's really, what's the right word? It's difficult. That's what I would say. It's really difficult. And we had a very traditional ad agency, Deutsch, which is great. They do all of our commercials. But this group, Cashmere from Los Angeles, is just amazing. They've won all kinds of awards. They've worked with some of the biggest brands. They've worked with Google. They work with BMW, all kinds of great brands, in helping you understand the world that we live in, the society, the different groups of people, and how you craft your message based on your values to connect to the right groups of people. And it's been a really powerful experience for us. Really powerful.
Well, listen, Mark, I don't want to keep you because your home is only a few minutes away, and I know you got a busy week.
I'll be sleeping in a half
You'll be
hour.
And nothing keeps you up at night.
No,
so I want to make sure you get back.
The food
to
does.
bed.
The food does.
Keeps you up.
Anyway, thank you
Yeah,
have a great
thank
conference.
you so much.
All right,
It's
guys. Thanks.
such a pleasure to have you with us.